were talking about the offensive line. You can always watch the show on YouTube. Chime in on there. It was great interacting with the chat. Craig says, this is the Buckeye plan. Break the huddle. The offensive line plays musical chairs for 20 seconds. Then they line up. Texas is completely confused.
They have no idea what's going on.
No, they don't. Have no clue. To that point, though, which got me thinking when I was listening to you guys today, I was listening and watching the Austin Siereveld show. Yeah. I've, since we've started daycare, and it's just been 2 days, and then he doesn't go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Oh, you're bored?
I've got a lot more time on my hand to be able to consume your guys' show.
Oh, thank you.
So we've got a stationary bike in the basement, and I ride that through one episode. Whether it's 18 minutes or 30 minutes, it just doesn't matter.
Sounds like a challenge.
7 minutes. Yeah, if you guys go an hour and a half, I'm riding the bike. And I think it was Berm who brought up the pretty good point about advantage in the Texas game. We know that Texas brings back the same scheme. They have a lot of different players that are drafted, right? I mean, we know that they're losing an incredible amount. Same with Ohio State. But the difference between Ohio State and Texas and what they have returning, Texas has the same scheme. Ohio State likely will have the same scheme, and we've talked about that. Offensive identity, it's still going to be the Ryan Day offense, and the defense is still going to be the Buckeye defense, which Ryan Day has talked about. But when you actually break it down, Austin, like Texas, even though they played a couple of games ago, it could look very much different than what they saw last in the Cotton Bowl, given the new coordinators that are here in town.
Yeah. Ironically, continuity is actually the enemy for Texas in this case. It's what you want. It's what every coaching staff wants. You want to have an identity. You want to have familiarity with the scheme. And if you're changing quarterbacks, for one, and Arch Manning is going to do things differently than Quinn Ewers, so that is certainly going to be different for Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns there. That'll be a different adjustment, I think, that the Buckeyes have to make. But they also will have seen Arch Manning film already and how Texas used him a year ago and those couple opportunities off the bench. So I don't think that's going to surprise them. Also, I think one part of this matchup that hasn't been discussed a lot, although you and I have talked about it, is that Texas has to replace those 4 offensive linemen up front.
And they're already down one for the entire season.
A pretty daunting proposition for them. But back to the point about the coaching staff, you look at this, and Ohio State has to replace Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles. Ooh, that's a big deal. You're losing both coordinators. But the defense, absolutely not broken. You don't have to come and have somebody to fix it.
And Matt Patricia's not trying to.
And he's not. He is trying to find areas of enhancement, and maybe that means different personnel groupings, different packaging, different creativity. I think all those things that we've talked about are going to exist, but the rest of that staff remains in place. And Ryan Day talked about that going into camp. This is the Ohio State defense now. Mm-hmm. Been able to put a little bit of an identity on that, but Texas doesn't know exactly what Matt Patricia is going to do. And a lot of the personnel is different as well. What's C.J. Hicks is doing over here? We didn't see him.
You mean
on film.
little Abdul Carter?
Little mini Abdul Carter. Yeah. I don't know how well C.J. Hicks would respond to that notion of him being a mini anything. But
also another clip we're going to play from Philip Daniels in the 7 o'clock hour. He was playing the hits today, man.
He was awesome. Yeah, the Philip Daniels hour, I would sign up for that every single week if we could get that. And maybe we will. But, you're going to know what you're getting out of Texas, I think. Now, they've had an entire offseason to plan, and there's always going to be wrinkles and different things that they can do. But I think by and large, Ohio State can look at this and look at the Cotton Bowl and reasonably project what that's going to look like. And maybe Texas could feel like it would be able to do the exact same thing with Ohio State, but it's the first time Brian Hartline's calling these plays, whether that's Julian Sayin as we expect or potentially some role for Lincoln Kienholz. That would be very different potentially than what Will Howard did, no matter which one of them is on the field for Ohio State at quarterback. Running backs are different. You know what they're going to try and do to Jeremiah Smith, but you've added Max Clare into this, so it's not even just the personnel is different and the coaching staff is different.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Let's get back to the topic du jour. Offensive line day over at the Woody today. New offensive line coach and run game coordinator, Tyler Bowen. He was on the microphone. Austin Siereveld exclusively practicing at left tackle now, which we dove into in the first segment. We will talk a little bit more about that when we get into the 7 o'clock hour, when we hear from Austin himself. But what about the jump that he has taken, and why now is he exclusively only working on the left side? Here was Tyler Bowen on that.
I think just his work ethic, his leadership, those two things. I mean, coming out of the summer and the spring with some of the things that he did with Coach Mick in the weight room, you see those things translating on the field. He's always been a powerful, athletic guy. We've got to get him to play within his technique better, but you can see the things that he generated in the weight room and the leadership and kind of the edge that he brings. You can see that showing up on the field.
And I know that we always talk about the most important position on the offensive line. And college football, you can make the argument that the center is. I think the NFL, there's no doubt. Look at the dollars amount going to the left tackle, right? It's the premier position that you want to play, protecting mostly, unless you're playing for a lefty, then you'd be on the right side, a la Justin Herbert or another lefty quarterback in the league. It's the premier position you can play on the offensive line. So if you have all these attributes in Austin Siereveld, and he's proved in the weight room in the offseason, he's proved it with the leadership, and you think to yourself, man, he could actually give it a go, and maybe he's the best one on the team, then I think it's probably a natural decision for them to then make that change, Austin, even though we spent the whole season talking about him perhaps starting at right tackle. You have a new quarterback. They're both righties, and if you want them to be protected, the best possible outcome, and these guys are watching every single rep in practice and in film, then Austin Siereveld's the guy. At least I know they haven't named anyone starter. I know there isn't a depth chart out there. But everything that was said yesterday and then today between Ryan Day and Tyler Bowen leads me to believe that Ohio State has their starting left tackle.
Well, Ryan Day has publicly said Austin Siereveld is a starter.
Yes, and then when you hear he's exclusively working at left tackle.
By process of elimination, we have determined that he is the left tackle. And Ryan Day went into this, and Tyler Bowen talked about it as well. They didn't just say, he's a great hard worker, and we want him over there because he's earned the most prominent role on the offensive line. No, they Mickey Marotti, do you believe he's got the size profile? Can he do this? Can he move that? Does he have the arm span, wingspan to do this? And they're like, yeah, every box is checked off. He can do all those things. And then you go through that and all right.
Does he have the genotype for a build for an offensive lineman? Genotype, is that a word? I think it is.
He is
phenotype.
I mean, he's also the quintessential Ohio State lineman, and they call him Piggy. For goodness sake.
Yeah. It brings me back to the day in the mid 2010s where they were simply named the Slobs.
He's a throwback to the Slob era. And I just love Austin Siereveld's story. And it's I don't know, the poster child for why you would want to take these Midwestern kids who understand, even if they're not the national 5 stars, and you want to pursue them if you're Ohio State. I'm not saying that they shouldn't. And we've talked before a lot about how much NIL allocation and resources you want to spend on that. If you want to go toe-to-toe if a Tennessee or a Texas A&M or whoever, Clemson, are offering 7 figures for that, is that the road you should go down? Or could you take 3 Austin Sierevelds and see if 1 or 2 of them emerge? Because
then they can have a 3-man competition for 1 spot.
And because, build your depth that way. I think that's an interesting dynamic to what Ohio State has sort of seen transpire here with, Tegra Shabola was a decently coveted recruit, not saying he wasn't. Carson Hinsman was up there. You had a battle down to the wire with Wisconsin. Luke Montgomery, a little bit more of a national recruit, but somebody from the Toledo area. You wouldn't expect Ohio State to lose out on that one. But Austin Siereveld is one of those guys that you just look at. It's like, well, why not take the shot on that and see what happens? Josh Fryer was from just outside the border, obviously, over in Indiana, but it's that same sort of concept. They don't always have to be the 5 stars, especially at a developmental position like offensive line, whether that's guard, tackle, or center, whatever. It's going to take multiple seasons generally until you're going to get on the field. And if you can identify the ones who have the right work ethic, who have still the size and speed or, strength or whatever lateral agility that you're looking for, you trust your coaching staff then to develop that. And I think Austin Siereveld bought into that, and Ohio State did too.
Tyler Bowen will update you on the battle for right tackle, as we presume if Austin Siereveld is going to be the starting left tackle. You'll hear more from him coming up in 2 minutes. It's the Buckeye Show on The Fan.